Welcome to the Golf Improvement Podcast, episode 225.
Welcome to the podcast for golf lovers who are looking to shoot lower scores. Dedicated to professional club fitting, putting and short game improvement, and effective practice techniques to improve your golf game. This is the Golf Improvement Podcast with your host, Tony Wright.
Hello, this is Tony Wright from Game Improvement Golf in Oak Ridge, Tennessee with the Golf Improvement Podcast, dedicated to sharing useful information on professional club fitting, putting and short game improvement, and effective practice techniques, changing golfers' lives, one golfer at a time. In 2022, I had the opportunity to be a beta tester for a then new meditation app, Equa Health, created by a team at my alma mater, Carnegie-Mellon University. I provided some, I think, helpful comments on the app, and then actually stopped using the initial version of Equa Health. However, sometimes you get lucky. About 2 months ago, I decided to load the 2025 version of Equa Health on my phone and realized I had full access to the app because I was a beta tester. Now I am more than 40 plus days into using the app every day, and I loved using it and what I'm getting out of it, and seeing some changes in my life and golf game as a result of using it. So a few weeks ago, I contacted the Equa Health team and asked if Dr. David Creswell, a world-recognized expert in the science of mindfulness and the chief of science at Equa Health, would be interested in doing an interview with me. We recorded this interview a few days ago, and David shared some valuable information in this interview that I know you'll really enjoy. So not only enjoy learning from David, but be sure to listen after the interview for a way you can use Equa Health for free for 3 months.
Tony Wright and Game Improvement Golf, changing golfers' lives, one golfer at a time.
Welcome to episode 225 of the Golf Improvement Podcast. I am truly excited to welcome Dr. David Creswell, who's the William S. Dietrich II Professor of Psychology and Neuroscience at Carnegie-Mellon University. At his Health and Performance Laboratory, he studies what makes people resilient under stress, the science of mindfulness, meditation, training, and wellness. And he's been doing work in the science of mindfulness for over 15 years. Right? See, I told you this could be a really long intro because you got so much stuff, you know. But we have to drop in this part because you're the chief of science at Equa Health, and Equa Health is a mindfulness coach app, and he and others have developed it. And he loves golf, and I guess pickleball, right?
That's right. That's right.
How good is that? Welcome, David.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's a real pleasure to be on here and to talk to fellow golfers and sport enthusiasts about these things that I normally keep, a lot of my research sort of to some degree separate from a lot of the science that we do. But then there's these really great points of connection. And I think this podcast might be a place where we can talk about some of those sort of common interests.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you shared your sort of personal initial story about what started you in a science of mindfulness, but I don't expect my listeners really know that. So talk a little bit about sort of way back and when you started in this whole arena.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I grew up in Lincoln, Nebraska, was a professor's kid there, and in my senior year of high school, I took a psychology class, and I also took a class on Buddhism and world religions. Kind of cool for a high schooler to be able to do those things.
Yeah.
And with psychology, I saw this really amazing opportunity where there was like tools for studying the human experience, and to really develop a science around studying how people work, how they think, and how they relate to each other. And I thought that was really great. And at the same time, in Buddhism, I was learning about these meditation practices, which were sort of kind of like scientific too. It was like a way for people to turn toward their experience, turn towards their spirituality, and open to their experiences. And then that when people did these things in these meditation practices, they really saw pretty pronounced transformation. They didn't suffer as much. They seemed to have more fulfillment in life. And I was really interested in that. It sort of felt like a real living spirituality. And so I went and found the local Zen meditation center. Believe it or not, there's a group in Little Lincoln, Nebraska that does this meditation, and started trying it out and practicing it a little bit. And then in college and beyond, I started trying meditation retreats, and I went to Colorado College in Colorado Springs for my undergraduate, and right there is the Olympic Training Center. And I was doing a major in psychology and a minor in sport and exercise science, and I wanted to be a sports psychologist so bad. And so through some serious efforts, I talked my way into being an assistant coach on the U.S. speed skating team. So I worked with U.S. short track speed skating, which had just moved to Colorado Springs, and they kind of needed an assistant on the team to kind of help out and do some mental skills work with this young team. And so I actually had this cool experience during college where I could actually took a little bit of time off from classes and worked full time with the team. And I started teaching them meditation. I started with Apollo Ono. He was a little 16-year-old kid at the time and hadn't really had a breakthrough performance, but had lots of potential. And he started coming to my room, and we do nightly guided meditation. And then he won the Junior World Championship a couple months later, and we started really working together a lot at that point. And the other team members started noticing how he was sort of changing in terms of handling, his performance under pressure, and just sort of maturing a lot more in his ability to manage all the stresses of competition. And so then they started coming, and we had this meditation group grow. So I had this really unique experience really early in life. I'm just a young college kid teaching meditation and working with that, working with elite athletes, and sort of seeing and trying different things in terms of how that meditation can be helpful. And then I went on to graduate school at UCLA after college, and was really interested in sports psychology, health psychology, and was fortunate to sort of get in there. And in my first 2 years of graduate school, I remember sitting down with my advisor and saying, I'd really like to study the scientific basis of meditation. I'm really interested in understanding how this practice of just sitting there and paying attention to your experience could have all of these sort of health and human performance types benefits. And my one of my PhD mentors at the time said, if you are going to study meditation, you need to do it really rigorously, because people are going to be really hesitant to sort of believe your findings with these types of practices. And so that really set me on a course of building these, we call them placebo-controlled trials, these really more sort of rigorous trials that sort of say, hey, how is meditation different than relaxation training? And so, we've done a lot of work in that space. And how does meditation change one's brain and change their immune system? And so we've done work in that. And, asking questions like, well, what are the skills that people learn in meditation programs that are so important for driving these sort of health benefits and performance benefits? And so, I've been sort of building that out, and I think, one of my hobbies is golf. Really have enjoyed playing golf, particularly as an adult. I didn't have much time as a kid, given I was more into tennis and racket sports for my own athletic interests. But I've really turned to playing golf now in my middle age, and loving the opportunity to sort of see how our mental skills are so critical for golf. You have this golf swing, and then or I have this golf swing that I do in rec play, and everything's great, and then I go into the club championships or some tournament with golf, and I all of a sudden have a different golf swing. I'm like, how is that?
Welcome. Yeah, right.
Yeah. Like my swing is so fast, like it's too quick, like I need to find that pacing. And so it's I think golf is a wonderful laboratory for building these mindfulness skills and translating, the practices that we do with meditation to, what is such a simple and yet so complex golf swing,
Yeah.
I'm happy to talk about any of that.
Well, we're going to let you do that in just a minute, but I would like people to hear, what is your kind of basic definition of mindfulness? And, you talk a lot on your website and things about building resilience, and, what tends to be the connection there that you are finding?
Yeah. Well, so mindfulness is this capacity to be open and receptive to your present moment experience. And when we talk about mindfulness, we really talk about two key components. You hear me use these terms like open and receptive. So we're really training people on how to open to their experience, be curious and welcoming of that experience. And that sounds all well and good. It's actually pretty easy to do if you're having a nice meal or a good time with friends. Easy to be open and receptive. But in these high stress, high performance environments, a lot of times it's stronger emotions, and you're feeling threatened or worried, and your mind is starting to spin in terms of building out stories about how you might perform or how you might want to deal with that. And you're now not in this open, curious mode of awareness. You're in sort of this kind of emotionally reactive mode of awareness. And so mindfulness meditation training is really about developing these skills, not in hot emotional context, but in the context of a quieter meditation, formal meditation type setting, to sort of build these skills. And I really talk about building these skills of equanimity, which is this sort of capacity to be non-reactive and open to your experience. And so we can teach you these skills of equanimity. Another term we could use for equanimity is being calm or cool under pressure. Everyone here has probably had times where they've had a really difficult performance, a tournament or a performance challenge where they might normally be anxious, but they might have noticed that you're a little more open and relaxed and sort of cool under pressure. And in fact, meditation allows you to train these skills and build these skills such that you can sort of turn them on better on demand when you might need them. And so, I think one component to this mindfulness definition is this sort of open receptivity and sort of learning that capacity, this sort of attitude towards your experience and being open, curious, and welcome. The other you heard me say was this open or receptive attention to your present moment experience. So there's this sort of present mindedness that we're not getting caught in thinking about the past or about the future, but we're really about being present to our experience. And so these mindfulness meditation programs really train you to sort of really tune into what's happening moment by moment. And you might imagine that could be really important for improving your focus, your concentration, your ability to move your attention to what you care about. And certainly these are important things that we think about in the context of things like golf or other peak performance settings, is that we want to be very present. And most people, when they've had that kind of peak performance flow type state, they really report being very present to their experience. And so, meditation and mindfulness practices are really developing those skills too.
Yeah. Well, you dumped this, not dumped this, the right word. You asked to put this into our discussion, but I love to hear how you're applying mindfulness techniques to your own golf game. And you probably to your pickleball game, because I know you do that too.
Yeah. I've been doing more pro pickleball and just having a lot of fun. As a middle-aged guy now, being able to move from tennis to a new racket sport and sort of develop skills, it's just I feel like a kid again, and I just love it. So, and I felt that way too when I picked up golf seriously again about, I guess it was about 10, 11 years ago now. I think golf, first of all, I've been obsessed with some of the sports psychologists who work in golf. So I don't know, I'm sure some folks here have read Bob Rotella.
Oh, yeah.
And his sort of mental game approach to golf. I just love his writing and the way he sort of works with his athletes around, developing pre-shot routines, and thinking about how you approach golf in terms of, picking the most conservative target and then hitting aggressively at it. I just love some of the terminologies he's used around kind of building a complete mental game around golf. And certainly you hear a lot of mindfulness related themes built through his and other sports psychologists' approaches to teaching golf. And so for me, I think really noticing for me how different tournament golf was relative to my practice golf. And for me, I just love being in the arena. I love getting into tournaments because I love to kind of see these different aspects of myself and then really try to work with those experiences. I think meditation's really helped me build some skills around inviting in discomfort. These tournaments, they're really anxiety, producing for me. And the game of golf is beautiful in that, it requires power and precision and good decision making, off the tee and on approach shots. But it also requires this incredible fine motor performance around putting and, finishing holes. And, it's so easy when you're anxious or you had a double bogey on the previous hole to come to the next hole and you're on the putting green for me. And it's just what am I doing? I'm just tapping this little ball on this green, and just working with the kind of strong emotional reactivity that the game can produce and using that as a window for learning about myself and trying to, step up to the moment in new ways. And so I just love the game of golf in the sense that it produces so many different challenges out there in terms of, being able to, drive the ball, 260 yards consistently into the places that I wanted to go versus, being able to effectively make a 4-foot putt. These are hard skills, and I think that's why many of us love golf so much, is it's so challenging, and then to stack tournament pressure on top of that is just a whole other level. So anyway, it's a beautiful game. I think meditation provides wonderful skills for, I think, building this capacity to be able to stay focused for four hours, how to work with your attention, how to really savor all of the beauty of the game of golf, being outside in nature and connecting with others. But then also, training all these kind of equanimity skills, this capacity not to be non-reactive, to be open, and to really, be cool under pressure.
It sounds like you're almost like your own clinical trial when you're in tournaments.
I mean, aren't we all? I think,
right.
That's the beauty of the work that I do, is I get to really try to think about these things. But I think all of us, I think golf is really a unique setting in that nobody discounts the fact that our mental skills are so critical, because it's such a mental game, maybe even more so than tennis and some of these other sports. And so, if you're really caring about, improving your handicap and performing well in tournaments, you have to take the sports psychology seriously. And I think for me, these meditation practices are just so foundational for like building the whole mental enterprise, in those settings. And so for listeners who want to try it, we do have our mindfulness meditation app. I'm sure we'll probably talk about it a little bit. There are hundreds of other apps out there. And so, relative to 15 years ago, it's actually pretty easy for any of us to sort of go plug in and start to build a regular practice and start to just try out these mindfulness meditation practices. And I can say more about that, but just to call out, if you want to take your golf game to the next level, I definitely encourage you just to try out some of these mindfulness meditation practices and see how they work for you.
Now, Equa Health, that I've seen different things, almost like Coach in a Box and things, but it's different, okay? And that's not to put anything down with anything else in kind of its approach. At least I feel that way. But it started at a retreat, I believe, with you and, kind of the voice of Equa, right? Isn't it Juliana Ray and then Matt Polowitz? Talk about what kind of got that all started, and maybe when you actually started it, I wasn't sure about the timing of that.
Yeah, no, it's maybe a fun origin story. So, Equa, so that's EQUA. It's short for equanimity. We really wanted to sort of teach these calm, cool strategies, and didn't really feel like a lot of the meditation apps were really focused on that in ways that we thought were really consistent with the science that we've been doing on that. And so the story starts actually back in 2016. I was working with Shinzen Young, and we were designing this new study that really focused on these equanimity skills. How can we teach a more sort of equanimity enhanced meditation program? And so we did some initial science on that. And then I signed up. So Shinzen, Juliana Ray, and I all were going to teach a equanimity meditation retreat out in California. And so we did that. And while we were driving out there, we were sort of talking about like where the meditation app space was. Calm and Headspace were the two leaders, are still two of the big names in meditation apps, and just felt like there wasn't kind of the personalization that you would want with a meditation trainer. And so we really developed Equa, I think, as a sort of extension of that. And I met Matt Polowitz. He's the CEO of Equa. He was coming in as a MBA student, master's student here at Carnegie-Mellon, and he had been a meditation teacher and was really interested. And he was sort of like, "Hey, do you want to work in the in the sort of company space on some of the science you're doing?" And at the time I told him no. And then 6 months later, I kind of came back after this retreat and said, I think there's a real opportunity we have here to kind of translate our science into something that's going to be more effective and more sticky as a meditation app. And so, Equa started about 4 years ago, and we do like to call it like a meditation coach in your pocket. Like it's a more personalized meditation training experience. And, for the last 2 years, we've been working on our respiration science. And so, our users, if they like, can turn on our respiration tracker. So you put the phone on your chest, and using the accelerometer and gyroscope on the phone, it measures your respiration just by how your chest is moving. And we're finding that those respiration signals, we can show people how much their breathing rate changes during meditation, but also we can really show using machine learning technologies that we can actually predict whether you're having development of mindfulness skills in that session by how much. So, by tracking your breath, we have a whole new window into understanding who's going deep with their meditation practice and how their skills are developing. And, I think that's really important because a lot of people, they're doing meditation, they don't know if it's working. They don't really know if they're getting kind of a physiologic response. And so now, for really one of the first times, we have ways to start to track that and help people in their skill development. And at least in our initial clinical trials in this space, we're really finding that it really improves engagement. People like it. They like to see it. Some people here might go to Orange Theory for their fitness classes. It's a really popular chain that offers, treadmill and weights and stuff, training programs. And you put on a heart rate monitor and you see how many kind of peak exercise minutes you get. And I sort of say we're kind of building the same thing for meditation training using respiration tracking. You now have your respiration tracker and know how good your meditation sessions are. So I think those things can be really helpful. And Equi's been a really fun journey. If people want to try it out, we do have a sort of research-based arm to it. And so you can go and you can download Equa. You just put in EQUA into your Apple or Android store, and it will pop right up. And you can put in the passcode Equa EL. So that's EQUAEL. It's like Equa Elite. And that will put you into our respiration training thing. You have to sign a consent form saying you're okay with us using your respiration data to improve our algorithms and stuff. But that actually helps our science. So hopefully everybody wins, and you can also give us your feedback too.
Now, I'm going to come back to when I first used it and then came back a couple months ago. But I mean, some of the key things in there are see, hear, and feel, and concentration, clarity, and equanimity.
Nice.
And then micro hits, okay?
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference to me in using it, okay, is that there's just something more tangible. Maybe, I don't know if that's the right word or not, but you had said earlier, how do you know if it's working, right? And it seems like that focus helps me in what I'm doing. So talk a little bit about how those became embedded in sort of the base of Equa Health.
Yeah, I'm so glad. It's great to hear you using our terminology. It sounds like you've been really going deeper.
I've been at this for 38 days since I got back into it. So there you go.
Oh, that's great. Oh, and then how has it been working for you? I mean, have you noticed?
My wife says a couple of things. She's kind of wondering, okay. I mean, truthfully,
yeah.
I think I see elements of it helping on the golf course. Mm-hmm. I felt like when I played the other day, I almost use see and feel as a kind of part of a pre-shot routine.
Oh, cool.
Kind of see where the ball is going and feel like I'm making a balanced swing, And every once in a while, if I got mad at myself, I might feel like, it's okay to be here,
Yeah. That's great. So for people who wonder what we're talking about, we really anchor our mindfulness meditation guidance around your sensory experience. And really working with that. And a lot of times when people think about meditation, they say, oh, it's about just following your breath. Well, that's just one aspect of your sensory experience. And we can actually say, well, you have a whole lot of body experience. You might notice your breathing, you might notice your chest moving, you might notice tightness in your shoulders. These are all body experiences that we might call feel. But actually there's other types of sensory experience too. You have the mental images or the actual sights that you see out in the world, and we call this see. And in fact, you can do meditation practices that are just about anchoring your experience in your visual sensory experience, whether that's mental images or sights out in the world, and really working in that space. That's actually meditation. And then also you might have internal thoughts or conversations, or you might be hearing sounds out in the world. This is your hear sensory experience, and you can do meditation that focuses on that. And you can also do meditations that really move across see, hear, and feel. And that's what I hear you doing, Tony. You're sort of really working with these different sensory experiences, and then it becomes a little bit more automatic. So you're out on the golf course and you're sort of noticing, in this pre-shot routine, I'm seeing where I'm going to hit the ball, the sort of trajectory of that ball. And I'm also going to have feel experiences, like, in that pre-shot routine, I might sort of feel that ball off the club face, as I make contact in a really square way, and, drive that club through the ball, down through the ball, for example. And those are all sort of feel experience, like that's body experience, right? And you're starting to label that and notice it in real time. So in some sense, see and feel became real anchors for you and sort of enriching your pre-shot routine, and then maybe even enriching just the quality of like actually making the swing on the ball, for example.
Yeah.
And so those can be really powerful tools. And, a lot of this is all infused with this sort of equanimity practice, like this sort of kind of general matter-of-factness about our experience. Like if that experience is good, bad, or neutral, that we're just welcoming it, we're inviting that experience in, and sort of working in that space so that you're allowing experience to happen. And all of us who have those best golf rounds, almost everybody sort of says like, I wasn't trying to force anything. It was just sort of, I was just kind of open and kind of moving with the experience, and I think these equanimity skills can really enhance that as well. So it's cool to hear you talk about it that way. So that's kind of our anchor, is sort of see, hear, feel. You're not going to come to Equa and just focus on your breath. You're going to be working across these sensory experience domains, enriching them, and kind of infusing them with equanimity. And you mentioned the other three, so not just see, hear, feel, but you mentioned concentration, sensory clarity, and equanimity. Concentration, clarity, equanimity, CC and E. Those are the mindfulness skills that we're trying to develop. So we get really clear in our curriculum around like, here's why you're doing this. You're trying to build your concentration skills. You're trying to get much more clear about your experience, this clarity, and you're trying to change your attitude toward experience to let it flow, which is the equanimity piece. And so, we're using see, hear, and feel practices to build concentration, clarity, and equanimity.
And then micro hits too. But in addition to micro hits, I mean, every time someone uses this, and I'm not trying to make this podcast to be about. I mean, obviously, I really like this thing, but the micro hits is like measuring, okay, in a way, or measuring during the day, but then every time during the use for a 10-minute session, you're trying to measure where a person is. Are you calm? Do you have clarity? What's the level of clarity? What's your level of concentration? So that's a lot different to me than just sitting and feeling like you're quote unquote meditating. Okay.
Yeah, no, it's such a great point. I think, we sort of talk about formal practice, and it sounds like you, Tony, might be kind of doing this a couple days a week, or did you say 38 days in a row or something? I mean, you had a regular practice, and
I had been using something else I had dropped. Well, I was going to say that later. I was a beta tester in 2022. Okay.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I got lucky about 2 or 3 months ago, and I don't know, I just thought, let's look at this again. Okay. And I looked at it again, and because I was a beta tester, I was a premier level. Okay.
Yeah.
Thought, well, maybe I ought to see, and it's different than it was 3 years ago. It's hugely expanded in terms of the elements that people can try in their meditation practice. And, some of it about performance, some of it is about being, connected with people around you. What are there like 20 different routes you can take, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I sort of forget that we've had a real significant arc in terms of improving the platform. There's still so much we want to do though, Tony. So I feel like, man, there's all these things we want to really polish and improve on. So keep staying with it. And I'm glad that, you've had some real momentum with it. You mentioned micro hits. So maybe can I say one thing about micro hits?
Sure.
Just so, I think we oftentimes think about meditation as I need to go, sit for 30 minutes or an hour in formal practice in the lotus position on the ground on some cushions or something. And, that works for some people. But, what we're finding is that with the mobile app space, with these meditation apps, they're pretty portable, and they can be pretty flexible too, and that most people don't want these really long sessions. So, we've been really trying to build these much shorter lessons that are anywhere between 2 and 10 minutes long in terms of formal practice sessions. I think those can really build some momentum. But as you mentioned, we sort of send people out in the world after you do your formal practice. We say, hey, today, do 2 micro hits. Just take a moment in your day, a minute, and just do this practice in your day. Maybe you're in line at Starbucks. Maybe you're, sitting down to the dinner table, and you want to just have a minute. These micro hits are really powerful. They're sort of little boosters that help infuse these mindfulness skills into your daily life, and really, I think, create opportunities for just greater enrichment. People feel like they're living, with these types of micro hits. And so, we're really thinking about ways to make these practices accessible and not feel just really overwhelming or onerous. Ideally, we're finding people who are already stressed out in life. We don't need to add to their stress. Providing some relief. And, these micro hits are wonderful ways to sort of extend your formal practice.
And where did that kind of come from? Where did the idea for that come from? I mean, any specific area or?
Yeah, I mean, different traditions in the meditation space. They talk about them as mindful moments. And I worked with Thich Nhat Hanh's group for a long time. He passed away, but he encouraged sort of setting these bells of mindfulness, make your watch chime every hour, and that's your bell to sort of remind you to take 3 deep breaths and really pay attention to your experience. And likewise, these micro hits, something that Juliana and to some degree Shinzen Young really developed as a way to kind of bring these practices into your life. Shinzen Young's sort of famous for saying, let's figure out ways to monasticize your life. Take this sort of monastic training and bring it to your everyday experience. And if you look at the science of meditation training going back now 4 or 5 decades, you even look at the earliest studies, in the early 80s, for example, and you ask people what are you carrying forward from learning this 8-week meditation program? They say it's these mindful moments. It's taking these skills and applying them in the moments when I need them in my everyday life. That really is transformational for me. And so I think micro hits provides a way, a formal way we can talk about doing this, and that we can do it in these kind of momentary doses of practice, and that people love those, and they're not hard to do. Hard to argue that you don't have time waiting in the Starbucks line to sort of have a minute check-in with your experience, kind of open to your experience, for example.
And I kind of feel like in doing it too, that if you do it just a little bit, it's sort of, the world of atomic habits, right? Ingraining it as a little bit of a part of your life. I mean, that's when it's really starting to work, I think, right?
Yeah, you're exactly right. The first couple of weeks you start doing this, it feels very intentional. You kind of have to remind yourself to do it, and then do it. And then, it sounds like, Tony, you kind of had this experience, it just starts to happen where see and feel turn on, and you kind of have those labels, and you're just noticing. And it's whoa, I all of a sudden, my brain is tuning towards, just being mindful at baseline. And I can't help but to sort of tune into my experience and sort of open to it. And that's where the power really comes, is as you start to develop these things and they become more automatic. And that's where the kind of dramatic changes in suffering reduction and fulfillment enhancement really start to kick in.
Now, I know you're continuing to develop all kind of things, and I got to figure out how to turn the respiratory training on, which I'll do, and I'll put things like that in the show notes for people. But you're also delving into AI as another way of kind of delivering all the little elements, isn't that right? And Sean turned that on for me, and it's pretty neat.
Yeah, we're just we're in the first couple months of really pushing up the kind of AI training features, and so we're hopefully going to be releasing something out into the world soon where, people can, at least on the research side, come in and start to play with it. And I'm pumped that Sean gave you access and let you sort of try it. But, the basic idea is that, say you go through our intro curriculum, which is, 14 sessions, 14 units. And so you've kind of learned the basics, you've learned our terminology, you've got some momentum, you've figured out what you like and maybe what you dislike in terms of how we work and train. So, you kind of have your favorites. Well, then we want to really turn you loose with our AI trainer, where you can sort of then say, hey, like, I really want to do the full see, hear, feel practice. I really want to focus on equanimity skills. And I want it to be, helping me with this upcoming tournament that I have tomorrow, big golf tournament tomorrow, and managing the sort of, anxiety and sort of jitters that I have for that. Well, now with the tools of AI and these, large language models, we have ways to really tailor our curriculum, the way we train people at Equa to really meet your needs where you are. And let's face it, like, you as someone that's going into a golf tournament tomorrow might have a very different meditation interest than someone who's got irritable bowel syndrome and is really struggling with that, right? And so those are two different types of, like, we can still teach our curriculum and you can build your skills, but I think we want to personalize. And I think the AI systems that are developing now around that can really be helpful. Now, we don't want that experience to feel like you're talking to a robot, and we don't want that experience to feel like you're getting some diluted form of our kind of curriculum. So that's, and we want it to be, of course, safe and ethical, and that it's not going to, spin you out into like wanting to hurt yourself or something. So, we need the safeguards. So there's a lot of, I think, technical development in that space, but I think the vision is that these types of tools, as they develop, are going to be kind of the way to go in terms of a real personalized meditation coach in your pocket.
Yeah, it's pretty neat as a start. I could tell that it was just a start, but that's good. I think we'll kind of jump to the final end, because you talked a little bit about helping people and your own practice in golf. Kind of final word. But first of all, before that, this has been great. I mean, it's fun to hear you just be so excited about what you're doing. Okay, I mean, it's clear that this is sort of the start, and I think this thing that you're doing is really different, so it's pretty neat.
Thanks.
But kind of final words for listeners who you diving into using Equa Health, and you talked about it a little bit, and any other general things you think they can use to to apply mindfulness in their lives and sports performance. So
yeah, well, one big takeaway I want to leave folks with is that I think a lot of times people think of mindfulness or mindfulness meditation as a chance to go relax and mellow out. And that meditation is supposed to be a time that's like relaxing and easy. And I think that's totally the wrong brand for what meditation actually is. Meditation is a mental workout. It is like going to the gym. For anyone who's tried it, you sit down, you start paying attention to your body experience, for example, and your mind starts wandering to dinner later or some argument you had with your spouse, and then you're wrestling with your mind to sort of bring it back to your body experience, right? And so, you're noticing this mind wandering, and you're sort of wrestling with this, this mind that's all over the place. And then, you're noticing these narratives, you're sort of judging your experience, and you're spinning stories, and you're kind of reacting to experience, and you're like trying to turn on equanimity and do these equanimity reps. I'm just going to be okay. Experience is what it is. And these are sort of mental reps that you're doing. And I think that most people, when they start to notice that meditation isn't relaxing, but is really challenging like this, they immediately start to think, I'm doing meditation wrong. And that, I'm a bad meditator and this is not for me. When in fact, those are the moments when you're really doing these mental reps. So every time you are struggling with meditation, that's actually a window, not a wall. And so I want to leave people with that idea, is that, meditation is built to make you a little uncomfortable. You're having to sit still and pay attention to something. Maybe that's your body experience. Maybe that's your general sensory experience. And that each time your mind wanders and you bring it back, that counts as a mental rep for building your concentration. Each time you notice some kind of emotional reactivity and your kind of tendencies to react to it and just opening to that, those are equanimity reps. Those are these mental reps that count for really building brains that now when you go out into the world and you're dealing with challenging experiences or you need that concentration, you've now been building those skills. And I assure you that many people who do these types of practices, as they start to go into these settings, maybe it's a new golf tournament, for example, start to notice like I'm reacting a little bit differently now. I'm not getting caught. I'm not getting caught in my usual spirals. I'm a terrible golfer. I should never play this game. I should just quit. I shouldn't even finish this 18-hole round. There's no chance, the narrative, like there's no chance I can even make a good round anymore. So like, why even try? Those types of narratives can get really caught in our heads and start to put us into spirals. Whereas each shot, each hole is a new hole. You have 18 rebirths on the golf course every day. And to the degree you can start to develop these skills and start to change your relationship to those kind of spirals, I think, you can, I don't know about you, Tony, but the best golf rounds I have is I start poorly and then I finish strong. Like I figured out a way to sort of get out,
That's the most fun. I did that the other day on the back nine. That was one of the most fun nines I've ever had.
Yeah. And you kind of look at those moments of crisis and how you kind of clawed your way back out of it, and, there's nothing better than sort of saving par on a disastrous hole, for me. I think these meditation skills can kind of get you over the hump a little bit in those situations to the degree that you're practicing regularly. So anyway, I think this idea that meditation is easy and just a mellow out is the wrong brand. It is a mental workout, and if you do it, it's just like good exercise. It can really retrain your body and your brain in beautiful ways.
I was going to end right after that, but I got to tell you what, it's so, you hit it so much on the nail on the head. There are some times in the last whatever days, 38 days that I've done this, that I get measured at the end and I'm not paying attention. Right?
Yeah.
And I realize it. Okay. But it's because it got measured rather than just doing it. To some level, it got measured, right?
Yeah,
where are you? Where are you on clarity? Where are you on concentration? Where are you on equanimity? And sometimes those are not 4s and 5s; they're 3s, and every once in a while, some of it's 2.
Yeah,
and that's okay. That's another rep.
Yeah, and you can track these things over time. Each day is different. Have you noticed that? Your concentration, clarity, equanimity skills, and each meditation session is unique. And even for someone like me who's been doing it for a long time, I come in and I have really low equanimity days. But you're right, the tracking that we have, I think, really helps start to put words to it, to really start to be kind of holding ourselves accountable. Like, oh yeah, where is that skill at today? And how can I kind of lean in a little bit better next time? And that can be all in the service of building a much longer term, skill enhancement. Where now my equanimity is hitting new levels over time. So, yeah, just keep staying with it and work those equanimity skills even on your low skill days. Those are mental reps.
Well, this was really great. I know you're a very busy person, and I'm just so tickled that you did this. I'll put links in the show notes to the Equa Health app and to your Human Performance Laboratory. But I'll also put a link. You're a co-author of a big book, right? The Handbook of Mindfulness.
Yeah. And
I even looked on the Amazon today, and it's sold out right now. And it only came out in March, so that's kind of crazy.
Yeah, no, that's another hat that I wear, is to focus on research methods and how do we design better studies. So that's, it's important that we have the methods to do this stuff right. Going back to my my first year in graduate school, trying to channel my mentor's advice to do this science rigorously.
Yeah. Well, thank you again for doing this. Hang in just a second. I'll push the stop button in a second, and really, really appreciate it. Thanks, David.
Hey, thanks.
The Golf Improvement Podcast is sponsored by David Orr and the Flatstick Academy, putting instruction without all of the bull. www.flatstickacademy.com.
Thanks to David Orr and Flatstick Academy for sponsoring my podcast and website in 2025. In the link I've provided, you'll see that David has created more than 385 Flatstick videos, more than 7,000 hours of content, and 90 premium articles. David just published an amazing hour-long podcast interview with two other putting gurus, Stan Utley and Brad Faxon. A great listen. Subscriber cost is $9.99 a month. Incredible value for the money, especially if you want to stop being swayed by much of the awful putting content you'll learn from Dr. YouTube. See www.flatstickacademy for more details. A day after I recorded this episode, the Equa Health team contacted me with an opportunity for you to be able to use Equa Health for free for 3 months, and for them to get some beta testing data on the biosignal respiration model that they're working to add to the app. A great win-win. You can install Equa Health on your phone. You can sign into Equa Health and use this code, capital letters, GLF4LF, Golf for Life. And you'll have free full premium access to the version of the app that has the biosignal respiration models added. I've now been using the respiration modeling version of Equa Health for a few days. I put a belt around my chest and put my phone inside of that. And the data is guiding me to slow down my breathing while I'm doing a session. If you don't want to use a belt around your waist, you can lie down on the ground and put the phone in your chest when you're doing a meditation session. A note, you'll have to complete what they call elite user terms to have the Equa Health team anonymously use your respiration data to improve their breathing models. I hope a lot of you listeners will take advantage of this great opportunity to test drive Equa Health. If you click the link in the show notes for this episode, you can see all of my favorite previously published podcast content. I hope you'll subscribe to my YouTube podcast channel and also like the episodes you listen to through YouTube. Thanks. Well, that's it for today. In 2 weeks, I'll be doing a new podcast episode with John Novosel Jr., co-creator of the Tour Tempo process for improving your full shot and short game shot tempos. You need to know about this one, but until then, take care, God bless Ukraine, and God bless America.
Game Improvement Golf, changing golfers' lives, one golfer at a time. www.gameimprovementgolf.com